Hey guys, Joe Walker here. What the flipping hell is going on? In today's video, I'm going to teach you the 5 easiest mini ramp tricks, at least what I think are the 5 easiest mini ramp tricks. How do I know that they're easy? Simply because I can do them, and I'm not that good on a mini ramp, but I'm good enough, I feel, to impart the steps to learn these 5 tricks, what I think should be the first 5 tricks you learn when you're comfortable with 2 things. Number 1 is pumping back and forth on a transition, and the other one is the fabled drop-in. And I actually have a tutorial video on how to drop in if you're not quite comfortable dropping in yet. I'll leave a iCard above and a link down in the description below. Definitely check that out. But for the purpose of this video, you don't need to be able to drop in, but you do need to be pretty comfortable like pumping back and forth on a mini ramp. So the first trick on the list is the kick turn, both backside and front side. This is pretty much what everyone needs to learn before they learn any other trick. And you can just be sort of pumping back and forth on the transition, as I previously said, and then throw out a kick turn and just come back into the ramp regular. So what you want to do is you'll probably learn the backside kick turn first. It just feels more natural because you're looking back into the ramp as you come in. You simply just sort of go up the transition, press down slightly on your tail, turn your shoulders, and that in turn will turn your hips and it'll turn your board, and you just sort of pivot back into the transition. It's a little bit scary when you're learning the front side, although it is pretty much the exact same. It's just that press on the tail just before those front wheels hit the coping. You don't want that to happen. And then it's turning the shoulders, the hips will turn, the board will turn, and you go back into the transition. Front side feels a little bit more unnatural because you're coming back into the transition on your blind side. But once you've got the kick turns down, this is going to open up a lot of doors for future tricks where you're either going to need to like stall into the trick and then come out of it, like rotate out of it, or turn into a stall or something like that. So it's a necessary first trick to learn on transition. Trick number 2 on this list is the fabled rock fakie. Now, it's not necessarily the most comfortable trick on this list, but it is the one that makes the most sense to learn early on, because if you're dropping in or riding up a transition regular, one of the easiest things to do, which is basically what a rock fakie is just to press down on that tail, and unlike the kick turn where you then like turn yourself back in, you just lock that front truck over the coping, press down on the tail again, and come back in to the transition. It's the committing to the coming back in on a rock fakie, which is the scary part. That's the part that gets the heart going and the mind thinking, no, can't do this. But you can very simply just like lock your trucks over the coping, and then when you get more comfortable, more speed, you can lock more of the board over and you can get that like rock on the coping where the back wheels come off as well. It's exactly the same. It's just the commitment to pushing down on the tail, clearing the coping with your front trucks, and then just riding in. It's a very simple trick, and there's pretty much like 5% of this trick is skill, which is the pushing down on the tail twice. 95% of it is commitment. So just work with the rock fakie. You don't need to be able to drop in. You just need a good amount of speed to get those front trucks over the coping. Again, I have a tutorial video. Do check that out. Links in the description below as well, on a little bit more in-depth tutorial of how to rock fakie. But I would say it's definitely, once you've got the kick turns down, this is the one to go to, because it's gonna, overcome a lot of commitment issues. And it's also just a great trick, and it makes the most sense. If you're dropping in and then you rock faking, you can come back, and then it makes sense what to do. You can just keep practicing that back forth. So number 2 on the list, rock fakie. Number 3 on the list is the fakie tail stall. So this is basically just like getting into a drop-in, and it's a perfect sort of follow-up trick to the rock fakie. If you can imagine, you drop in, you rock fakie, and you come back, and then you just got a fakie tail stall. The only technical part of the fakie tail stall is basically timing it correctly. Now, if you can drop in, you're going to find this trick a lot easier, because the commitment part of the fakie tail stall, which is the going back into the ramp, is the tricky part. That's the 95% part, the commitment part, with pretty much all of these tricks on this list. So just play around with it, time it right. The worst thing that really ever happened to me with the fakie tail stall is if I missed the coping, I'd kind of do like a manual back in, I'd already learnt to drop in when I learnt to fakie tail stall, so I'd definitely recommend that. But it's just making sure that you firmly press down on that tail at the right time, you lock into that coping, and then you just basically do a drop in after that. And if you've already learnt to rock fakie, trick number 2 in this list, you can just basically rock fakie, fakie tail stall, rock fakie, fakie tail stall again and again and again until you've got both of them just fluid and comfortable. So number 3 on the list, the fakie tail stall. Number 4 on the list is the switch rock. Now, I didn't learn the switch rock until quite later on in doing transition, but the switch rock is one of the more simpler tricks on this list, if not the simplest trick, bar the kick turn. Because you simply got to you're riding back in like fakie or switch, and when you're coming up that transition, you just do a sort of slight press on the nose and those back wheels go over. It's pretty much the exact opposite of a rock fakie. The only difference is it feels a lot more comfortable than the rock fakie because you're not coming back into the transition backwards, you're coming in regular, so it feels a lot more comfortable. And if you've got enough speed at first, I wouldn't necessarily suggest learning it like this, but those back wheels can tend to just roll over the coping. I would try and get a good lift on those back wheels because you don't want to risk not going over the coping and flying over without your board. You also don't want to risk when you come back in not bringing those back trucks over the coping and clearing it, because you might hang up and splat on the deck. So yeah, very much exactly the same as the rock fakie. You ride up, but you're in fakie or switch, it depends how you sort of ride your board. You do a slight press on the sort of nose area of your board, lift those back wheels over the coping, lock in, and then lift up the back wheels again by pressing on the nose and come back into the transition. So number 4 on the list is the switch rock. Now, the 5th and final trick on the list is the backside rock and roll. Now, this is one of my favorite tricks on transition, and it's a combination of the rock fakie and the backside kick turn. You want to come up the transition exactly as you would with a rock to fakie. You want to clear those front trucks, and then exactly like the backside kick turn, you open up your shoulders. So you want to come back into the transition, so you're looking back down into the transition. You want to apply some pressure on that tail, and you want to apply enough pressure so you make sure you clear the coping. What happens a lot when people are learning the rock and roll is they don't clear the coping. It sort of like hangs up and they kind of just like jump off down into the transition. Not quite as brutal as bailing or hanging up on a rock fakie because you kind of turned the right way so you can sort of sort yourself out, but not nice, if I'm being honest. So yeah, the rock and roll, it feels cool, it sounds cool, it looks cool, it is cool. It's just a great trick to learn. The only thing to think about is just making sure that those front trucks clear the coping back on the way in, and a way to do that is to obviously open your shoulders back down into the transition, press down that tail firmly, and then you'll sort of pivot down back into the transition. So 5th trick on the list, the backside rock and roll. And there we have it, guys, the 5 easiest tricks to learn on a mini ramp, at least in my opinion. You can get comfortable with these tricks, that's what I'm going to be working on, and then maybe use them as your warm-up to learning other tricks. There are other tricks that are arguably just as easy to learn, but for me, I found that if I learnt these 5 in this order, this way first, then things would have been a lot easier with the other tricks that were to come. So yeah, we've got the kick turns, and then the rock fakie, and the tail stall, the switch rock, and then the backside rock and roll. Those 5 make up a lot of the foundation of other stalls that you will learn on transition. Let me know down in the comments below if you need any help learning any of these 5 tricks. Let me know what you're working on. And as always, I want to say a big thank you for watching this video. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.